The first time my mother called me in 3 years, she didn't ask if I was alive. She asked if I could send money. Not for food, not for rent, for a lawyer. Sweetheart, she said, voice shaking like she was the victim. Your father's being attacked. We're being sued. Someone is trying to take everything. I was standing in a crowded airport rolling my suitcase past laughing strangers, announcements echoing overhead. I should have felt something. Shock, fear, maybe anger. But I didn't, because I already knew. I had been watching them for months, and the person attacking them wasn't a stranger. It was me. I gripped the phone tighter and forced my voice to sound soft, clueless. Oh no, I whispered. Who would do that? There was a pause. Then she exhaled dramatically. I don't know, but they're saying it's about your grandmother's estate. My stomach didn't drop. It went still. My grandmother's estate. The same one my parents told me never existed. The same one they said was a misunderstanding, a mess, not worth discussing, and the same one that somehow financed my brother's new house, his new truck, his wedding, his endless second chances. Mom, I said carefully, like I was balancing on a knife edge, what exactly are they accusing you of? She lowered her voice. They're saying we stole it. I turned away from the crowd and stared at the glass wall, at my own reflection. Tired eyes, calm face, the face of a daughter they thought they had broken, a daughter they thought had disappeared across the ocean, a daughter they never imagined would come back. I let silence hang, long enough to make her anxious. Then I spoke. Well, I said, almost kindly. Did you? She gasped like I'd slapped her. How can you say that to your mother? There it was. Not denial, not innocence, just outrage that I'd asked. I smiled, because the game had already begun, and this time, I wasn't playing to be loved. I was playing to make sure they never did it to anyone else again. In my family, my brother Caleb was a sunrise, and I was the weather. Whatever went wrong, I was blamed for it. Whatever went right, Caleb deserved credit. When Caleb got caught cheating in college, my mother cried and told everyone he was under pressure. When I got a B+ in chemistry, my father stared at my report card like it was proof I was defective. When Caleb crashed my dad's car at 19, they hugged him, told him it was just metal. When I broke a plate at 15, my father said, "You ruin everything you touch." People think favoritism looks like gifts, praise, a golden child getting more. But in my house, favoritism looked like something quieter and crueler. It looked like forgiveness. Forgiveness Caleb never earned, and punishment I never deserved. My mother's favorite phrase was, "Caleb has potential." My father's favorite phrase was, "Don't embarrass us." And my own favorite phrase became, "I'm sorry." I said it so often I started to believe I was born owing them something. When I turned 18, I got a scholarship to a state university. I remember holding the letter with shaking hands, the kind of shaking that comes from hope you've never been allowed to feel. My mother barely glanced at it. "You're leaving?" she asked, like I'd insulted her. "It's a good school," I said quietly. "Full tuition." My father didn't even look up from the TV. "Don't get above yourself," he said. "You'll come crawling back." Caleb, sitting on the couch like a prince, grinned. "Yeah," he said. "She'll fail. She always does." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Because in our house, emotion wasn't allowed unless it belonged to Caleb. So I packed my things. I left. And for the first time, I could breathe. My grandmother Evelyn was the only person who ever looked at me like I wasn't a disappointment in human form. She lived 2 towns away in a small house that smelled like lavender and old books. When I visited, she'd make tea and set out cookies like I mattered. She never asked why I was thin, never asked why my eyes looked exhausted at 16. She just said, "Sit, sweetheart, tell me about your day." And I would, because she listened the way thirsty people drink water. I was closest to her in secret. My parents acted like she was a nuisance, a stubborn old woman who caused trouble. Caleb called her crazy because she didn't treat him like royalty. Grandma Evelyn saw right through him. Once, when I was 17, she held my hands and said, "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you won't let them shrink you." I laughed. "It's kind of late for that." She shook her head, eyes sharp. "It's never late. They need you small because they are afraid of what you become when you stand up." I didn't understand then. Not fully, but I remembered it later, like a sentence carved into my bones. The last time I saw her alive was during my first year of college. I took a bus home for the weekend because she'd been asking me to visit. She looked thinner, but her eyes were the same, bright, awake, like she was always watching for something. She hugged me and whispered, "You're doing good." My throat tightened. No one had ever said those words to me like they believed them. That night, after dinner, she pulled a folder from a drawer. "Your parents will tell you I'm confused," she said. "They'll say I imagine things, but I need you to hear it from me while I'm still here." I stared at the folder. Inside were documents, deeds, bank statements, letters. "I have assets," she said plainly. "Not just the house, savings, investments. Your grandfather left more than anyone knows." I blinked. "Why don't my parents know?" "They do," she said. "They just think it belongs to them." My stomach turned cold. She slid a letter across the table. "I tried to protect it," she said. "But I'm not naive. I know what your mother is capable of." My mother. The woman who cried in public and cut in private. "Why are you telling me?" I whispered. "Because you're the only one who won't sell your soul for it," she said. "And because—" She hesitated, then softened. "I'm leaving something for you." My breath caught. "For me?" "Yes," she said. "Not because you're my favorite, because you're the only one who was kind when you didn't have to be." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You'll need to be careful, Emma. You'll need to be smart." I nodded slowly, mind spinning. "What do I do?" She looked at me for a long moment, then said something that sounded like a warning and a blessing at the same time. "Whatever happens, don't fight them the way they fight." "Then how?" "Fight them with receipts," she said. Then she smiled. "Fight them with the truth." 2 months later, I got a call during a lecture. My mother's voice sounded shaky, performative. "Your grandmother passed last night." For a second, everything in me went numb. "Wait, what? How?" "Her heart," she said quickly. "It was peaceful." I didn't believe that. Not for 1 second. Because Grandma Evelyn wasn't frail. She was sharp. She was cautious. She was the kind of person who locked her doors twice. But I swallowed my suspicion and went home for the funeral. The house felt different when I walked in, like it belonged to someone else. Caleb was lounging at the kitchen table, scrolling on his phone, wearing black like it was a costume. He looked up and smirked. "Look who's back," he said. "Miss Scholarship." My mother rushed over and hugged me too hard like she needed witnesses. "Sweetheart," she cried, "this is so hard on us." On us. Not on the granddaughter who actually loved her. The funeral was full of people I barely recognized. Neighbors, distant relatives, church friends. Everyone kept telling my mother how brave she was. My father stood with his arm around her like a hero in mourning. Caleb accepted condolences like he was the one who lost a mother. I watched them perform grief the way actors perform tragedy. Beautiful on the outside, empty inside. After the burial, my mother took me aside. "We need to discuss something," she said. Her eyes were red, but I saw the glint underneath, the glint of business. "We went through her things," she continued. "There was some confusion." "What kind of confusion?" "She left a mess." My mother sighed. "There were papers, accounts, but nothing important. It's just stressful." My stomach tightened. Grandma Evelyn's folder flashed in my mind. "Can I see the papers?" I asked. My mother's face flickered. "No," she said too quickly, then corrected herself. "I mean, there's no reason. It's all handled." I stared at her. "Handled by who?" My father's voice cut in from behind. "Enough," he said, tone sharp. "This isn't the time to interrogate your mother." "It's also not the time to steal from a dead woman," I replied before I could stop myself. Silence hit like a slap. Caleb looked up, eyes wide for a split second, then amused. My mother's mouth opened as if she couldn't believe I'd said it out loud. My father's face darkened. "You're ungrateful," he spat. "Do you know what your grandmother put us through? She always had delusions about money and control. She wanted to cause trouble." I felt my hand shake. "She warned me about you," I said, voice low. My mother's eyes narrowed. "Oh?" she whispered. "And what else did she fill your head with?" I realized something then. They weren't scared. They were angry. Angry that Grandma Evelyn had spoken to me at all. That night, I went to Grandma's house alone. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the place looked wrong. Drawers open. Closet doors ajar. The faint scent of lavender covered by something else. Disinfectant. I walked to her desk drawer, where she had kept the folder. It was empty. My throat went dry. I checked her bedroom. Mattress slightly shifted like someone had searched underneath. Her jewelry box was gone. And then I noticed a detail that made my skin crawl. The framed photo of me and Grandma on her bookshelf was face down. Not broken. Not fallen. Placed face down. Like someone had made a point. I stood there in the quiet, my pulse roaring in my ears. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Where are you?" Another. "Come home. Now." A third. "We need to talk." I stared at the messages and felt something in me crack. Not sadness. Not fear. Something colder. A decision. I went back to my dorm the next morning, and 2 weeks later, I got a letter from a lawyer. Not an inheritance letter, a warning letter. It said I was not to interfere with any estate matters, and that any attempt to claim assets would be considered harassment. Harassment. That's what they called me asking for the truth. I sat on my bed with the letter in my hands and realized the most painful thing. My family wasn't just unfair. They were organized. They had planned this. And they believed I was too small to stop them. So I did the only thing they never expected. I disappeared. I told everyone I was taking a job overseas after graduation. It wasn't entirely a lie. I got a job with an international auditing firm, the kind of job that taught you how money moves, how people hide what they steal, how to read contracts like they're confession letters. I posted photos online, airports, cities, coffee shops, just enough to make my mother think she still knew where I was. I answered calls once every few months, always short. Busy, I'd say. Time zones. I became the distant daughter, the one they could forget, which is exactly what I wanted. because while they thought I was gone, I was building something. Not a new life, a case. It started with a simple question. If Grandma Evelyn had assets, where did they go? People who steal from estates always make the same mistake. They think family means no one will investigate. They think shame will keep the victim quiet. They think love is a leash. But I wasn't in love anymore. I was awake. Over the next year, I did what my grandmother told me. I didn't fight them the way they fought. I fought them with receipts. I used my firm's resources, legally, carefully, to learn. Public records, property filings, business registrations. Then I found it. A new LLC registered under my father's name. 2 months after Grandma's death. The address? Grandma Evelyn's old house. My fingers went cold on the keyboard. They didn't just take her assets. They used her home as a cover. I kept digging, and that's when I found the second thing. Caleb's new house, it wasn't in his name. It was in my mother's. The truck? Leased under my father's business. Everything they bought after Grandma died was wrapped in layers of family and paperwork. Like an onion of lies. They thought it was clever. But clever isn't the same as clean. And no one in my family knew the first thing about audits. I did. I started compiling timelines, dates, transactions, signatures. I found a bank transfer, small enough not to look suspicious, repeated every month. From Grandma's old account, an account that was supposed to be closed. I stared at the screen for a long time. She was dead, but her money was still moving, which meant someone was using her identity. My hands shook, but this time it wasn't weakness. It was rage sharpened into focus. I whispered to myself, "You chose the wrong daughter." Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I went back home. Without them knowing, not to confront, to watch. I rented a small apartment 2 streets away from my parents' house, under a different name. And for the first time in my life, I looked at my family without the fog of wanting their love. It was like seeing a movie you'd watched as a child and realizing the hero was always the villain. My mother still waved at neighbors like she was a saint. My father still played the role of hardworking provider. Caleb still drifted through life like the universe owed him comfort. But now I noticed the cracks. The expensive new patio furniture. The way my mother's car changed every year. The way my father, who used to complain about bills, suddenly stopped. Money doesn't just appear, it leaves fingerprints. I started attending the same grocery store, always from a distance, always careful. I watched my mother laugh loudly in public, then speak sharply to a cashier the second she thought no one important was listening. I watched Caleb brag to his friends about family money, calling Grandma Evelyn a bitter old witch. Then one afternoon, I saw my mother go into a law office, the same law office that had sent me the warning letter. I waited in my car, heart pounding. 2 hours later, she walked out smiling, not relieved, triumphant, like she'd won something. That night, I made a decision. If I wanted to take them down, I couldn't just accuse them. I had to trap them. Because people like my parents don't confess to the truth. They confess to what they think they can control. So I designed a trap they couldn't resist. I would make them believe I was finally coming back. Not as a threat, as an opportunity. I called my mother on a Tuesday. I knew the day mattered because Tuesdays were when she felt lonely enough to pick up. She answered on the second ring. "Emma," she said, surprised, like she'd forgotten my voice could exist. "Hi, Mom," I said softly, and let my voice shake just a little. "Oh my God, are you okay? Where have you been?" Her concern sounded rehearsed, but there was something else, a hunger. I've been working, I said. I'm tired. There was a pause. Working where? I can't really say, I replied, but I'm coming home. For a while. I could practically hear her mind calculating. Home meant proximity. Home meant leverage. Home meant control. Oh, sweetheart, she breathed. That's wonderful. We've missed you so much. I waited. Then I dropped the bait. I also found some papers, I said, like I wasn't sure if I should. What papers? Her voice sharpened instantly. My old stuff, I said. From when Grandma died. I never threw it away. Another pause. Emma, she said carefully, you don't need to worry about any of that. We handled it. I know, I whispered. But the papers, they mentioned something about money. A trust. Silence. Not grief, not surprise, panic. Controlled, but present. My mother cleared her throat. Those papers are meaningless, she said too quickly. Your grandmother was confused. She didn't seem confused, I said quietly. Emma? She snapped, then caught herself. Honey, you're overthinking. Please, come home. Let us take care of you. I smiled to myself in my apartment, staring at the wall covered in notes and documents. Okay, I said softly. I'll be there this weekend. When I hung up, I didn't feel nervous. I felt like a hunter had just watched the prey step into the clearing. When I walked into my parents' house, everything looked the same. The same framed family photos. Caleb's graduation front and center. My photo, smaller, tucked near the edge. The same smell of lemon cleaner and control. My mother ran to hug me, crying instantly. My baby, she sobbed. You're so skinny. My father stood behind her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Caleb strolled in 10 minutes later like the main character. He froze when he saw me. Then he smiled. Well, look at you, he said. World traveler. I met his eyes. Hi, Caleb. His smile tightened. Dinner was a performance. My mother asked about my job, but only to gauge how much money I had. My father asked nothing at all. Caleb bragged about his investments, throwing around words he didn't understand. And then, like clockwork, my mother set down her fork and said, Emma, we need to talk about the past. I kept my face neutral. What about it? She sighed like I was exhausting. You've been distant, she said. And I think it's because of your grandmother. Caleb snorted. Here we go. My father finally spoke. Your grandmother caused a lot of trouble, he said. And you let her turn you against us. I leaned back slightly, calm. Did she turn me against you? I asked. Or did you just finally run out of ways to hide who you are? The air changed. My mother's eyes narrowed. Emma, she said sharply, don't talk to us like that. I nodded slowly. You're right, I said. Let's talk like adults. Then I pulled an envelope from my bag and placed it on the table. My mother's gaze locked on it like it was a weapon. What's that? She demanded. Copies? I said. Of certain documents? Caleb laughed. You think you're a lawyer now? I didn't look at him. I looked at my mother. Her hands were trembling slightly, though she tried to hide it by reaching for her glass. I found out, I said softly, that Grandma's account was still active after she died. Silence hit like thunder. My father's face drained a shade. Caleb's smile vanished. My mother set her glass down very carefully. That's impossible, she said, voice tight. I also found out, I continued, that an LLC was created in Dad's name using Grandma's home address. My father stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. Enough, he snapped. You don't know what you're talking about. I opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet. Not everything. Just enough. Maybe, I said. You should look at the dates. My mother didn't reach for it because she didn't need to see it to know. She already knew. This wasn't a confrontation. It was a confession waiting to happen. My father's voice shook with fury. You come into our home and accuse us. I'm not accusing, I said calmly. I'm documenting. Caleb pushed back his chair. This is insane, he said. You always were dramatic. I turned to him for the first time. Funny, I said, because Grandma called you predictable. Caleb's jaw tightened. My mother's voice changed, soft, dangerous. What do you want, Emma? There it was. Not, what is this? Not, why are you doing this? What do you want? Because in her world, truth was always a transaction. I looked at my mother, this woman who had raised me to apologize for existing. And I thought of Grandma Evelyn's face-down photo. I thought of the empty drawer. I thought of the lawyer letter calling me a harasser. Then I said the most terrifying thing I could possibly say to a family built on control. I want you to tell the truth. My mother's eyes flashed. You ungrateful, she began, but I cut in. No, I said quietly, voice steady. Not to me, to the court. My father's face went white. Court? He whispered, and I smiled, because now they were finally scared. My mother's hand shot across the table and grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt. Her nails dug into my skin. You wouldn't, she hissed under her breath, eyes burning. You're not that kind of daughter. I leaned closer, voice low enough that Caleb couldn't hear. You made me that kind, I whispered. Then I stood up, gently pulled my wrist free and said louder, I'll be staying in town for a while. My father's voice cracked. You think you can destroy this family? I looked at him with the calm of someone who had already built the fire. I'm not destroying it, I said. I'm just letting everyone finally see what it is. I walked out, and behind me, at the dinner table, I heard my mother say the words that confirmed everything. Call the lawyer.